From Dricus triggering Izzy with his comments about African champions, to a fight between the two being on the cards if Still Knox can earn it, here's everything you need to know about Dricus Du Plessis' beef with Israel Adesanya. It all began with Du Plessis' comments about African champions, and let's just say they were quite triggering. On UFC 285 Media Day, Du Plessis did something that no one else has ever had the guts to do. He called out the African fighters who hadn't remained loyal to the continent and had left it for the States or New Zealand. It doesn't take a genius to figure out who Still Knox was targeting with those comments. It was everyone from Israel Adesanya to Kamaru Usman and even Francis Ngannou. Of course, given how he's fighting in the middleweight, Du Plessis realized that going down the racial road might just land him a bout against Izzy. Now, I'm not here to say whether it was the right idea to make a comment like that. All I'm saying is, many others have chosen a similar pathway to land big fights. Heck, Colby Covington became public enemy #1 when he made such comments in Brazil and basically decided to own that persona. He claimed that his career was on the line and how the UFC was about to cut him off because his fights weren't entertaining enough. As a result of how cutthroat competition is in the UFC, it takes something truly extraordinary to remain a big draw in the promotion. I don't necessarily blame Dricus for doing that, but he probably crossed the line. After all, it's not a great idea for a white person to say that they're fighting for Africa while discrediting the other fighters belonging from the continent. Yeah, he asked the reporters if the belts that the likes of Adesanya, Usman, and Francis have won go to Africa. He mentioned how those belts stay in New Zealand or the States instead of Africa, and claimed that he'll take a belt to the continent, before adding that he's the African fighting in the UFC. Unbelievable. It does take some guts to say that, and it did work to some degree, but I'll get to that in a minute. Du Plessis basically made himself the so-called savior of the African continent, talking about how he breathes African air, trained in Africa, is African born and raised while residing in Africa as well. Like I said, as far as rustling feathers goes, it wasn't a bad ploy. But he got a lot of Africans criticizing the South African born, how he wasn't a real African, and how they didn't need him to save the continent. If Still Knox genuinely thought he'd have the support of the continent after those comments, then he definitely didn't come up with the right plan. If the plan was to get a reaction out of Adesanya, then I'll say it worked, because he got into Adesanya's head. The last stylebender was absolutely fuming. I'd like to see Du Plessis making a similar comment right before the fight too, should he get the chance to go in the ring against the Kiwi. Adesanya spoke directly to Dricus in a video posted to his YouTube channel. The middleweight champ talked about how he'll take Dricus to school in the octagon and on history. Told you he wasn't holding back. He further added how Still Knox needed a history lesson, but at the same time pointing out that he's no one to question someone's heritage. Yes, Adesanya was born in Africa, and yes, he decided to fight under the flag of New Zealand, but it's true that Du Plessis' comments were in very bad taste. You see, South Africa compared to the rest of the continent is very different. You don't get the same opportunities elsewhere as you do in South Africa. And if there are Africans from other regions going out of the continent to pursue their dreams, then it's not because they're taking the easy way out. It's because that might have been their only way to chase their dreams. Du Plessis simply can't question this, and Adesanya is spot on in his argument. He told Dricus how he was a product of colonization, trying to tell Adesanya who he was. Before adding how you could take a boy out of Africa, but could never take the Africa out of the boy. And just like that, Adesanya won all his fans back. The champ also pointed out how this was a terrible way of asking for a fight. The last stylebender explained how he knows Du Plessis' real intentions behind those comments, but he questioned the South African if that was the right way of going about it. In fact, he added how he hadn't even discredited anyone from anywhere and didn't understand the reason behind Dricus doing the same to him, all because he wants a fight. Before this, Adesanya had also claimed that he didn't want to give any clout to someone like him, simply because he knows that he'd be walking into the trap. Du Plessis, though, isn't one to hold back. When he kept firing shots one way or another, Adesanya truly exploded after winning his title against Poatan at UFC 287, and fired a huge warning to Du Plessis. Izzy said that he wanted to whoop his so bad and how he wanted to do it in South Africa or Nigeria. Now that'd be a fight worth making, no? The Kiwi Nigerian might disagree with the approach Still Knox took in creating this beef, but at the end of the day, it could end up furthering his legacy in the UFC across the entire African continent. I'll get to that too. Adesanya, though, has told Dricus that he won't fall for these tricks. If he wants the fight against the middleweight champ, he'll he'll have to earn it. And that's something I guess everyone agrees with. Izzy said that he was hoping that Dricus can keep winning and how he's praying to God he earns the fight because he'll gladly drag his carcass across South Africa. Well, there's no backing down from this one now, Du Plessis. You wanted the fight, you've got to earn it. Adesanya won't be backing down from a challenge of this magnitude, especially after the comments he's already made. So now, the ball is back in Stillknock's court. If he wants the fight, he'll have to continue his winning streak. And if he does, it's a win-win for just about everyone involved, particularly the UFC. The promotion has been trying to expand its popularity in Africa, and the best way of doing that would be by giving them an African champion. Of course, the definition of an African champ is different for Du Plessis, but it might just be the best way to settle this beef. All Dricus needs to do is keep winning, and then leave his fate in the hands of Uncle Dana. As far as Adesanya is concerned, it's not like there are a lot of other challengers waiting in the wings in the middleweight division. Alex Pereira has moved up a division, and that leaves him all alone at the top. More importantly, there's a lot on the line here than just his title. He'll get the chance to become the first UFC fighter to win in Africa if he agrees to this fight, and will get the opportunity to beat the allegations that he isn't loyal to the continent. Talk about getting thousands of new fans, but Du Plessis will make him work for it. It's not like he's no match at all for the last stylebender. Yes, Izzy will be the heavy favorite coming into this one, but to say that Dricus doesn't stand a chance is absolutely incorrect. That impressive win over Darren Till was enough for the majority of the UFC to take note.
He prides himself on his heart, having to dig deep here tonight.
Add to that his wins over Derek Brunson and Brad Tavares, and you got a superstar in the making.
Even with a raised guard, feels like there's damage being done.
Well, there's damage. Yeah, it's heavy power.
But for him to land that fight against Adesanya, Du Plessis will have to earn that fight. He'll have to go through Robert Whittaker in what will be a title eliminator at UFC 290. Should Du Plessis keep his win streak intact, he'll get the chance to fight Adesanya. I'm sure Dana and the UFC will try their best to make it happen in Africa. All that depends on how he performs against the Reaper, who has been acting like a guard dog for the division. He's not good enough to land a fight against Adesanya, having lost on both occasions to the last stylebender, and Dana is not keen on giving him a third shot at his champ. But he's still been too good for the rest of the division, defeating anyone who manages to put together a good run of victories. So Du Plessis has actually done the hard work, which was to get inside Izzy's head and convince Dana to give him a title shot, but now he has to do what's left, which is defeating Whittaker at UFC 290. So from Stillknock's having to earn a fight against the last stylebender to his comments on UFC's African champions, this was all you needed to know about the Dricus Du Plessis Israel Adesanya beef.